to a typical actual apartment. I'll show you, they're pretty much all the same, but get to that later. 8200s down here. So you guys have the Pelican system too, which I'm sure you guys are very familiar with. So the Pelican system overrides this. This really only does alarms. So if you give this a command for this room or whatever, but the Pelican gives another command, the Pelican overrides this. So the Pelican system is really your go-to for actual temperature changes. You're familiar with A200s and how to use them and all that stuff? We had them at St. Paul's residence and all that. I think we've had other projects with them. But it has all the floors here. So you can see they're mostly off right now. We also have, you can get energy stuff. I don't really use that much. But you can do a maintenance log. So these are all communication errors, probably when they dumped the building. 6607, so it's communication error, no acknowledge return. That came through on 313. They were doing a bunch of generator tests, so that comes through when they shut the power off, turn it back on. There's also an expansion on here. So you have the A200 and the expansion. One floor is on the expansion, the other floor is on the A200. The expansion is just in here. It's this guy. But it's still displayed through this. So it's just, once you get over 50 units, this can only handle 50 units, you have to get the expansion. So when the alarms come through, you'd see an alarm icon over here, but say it starts on the say it's always gonna start with the A200. You do that and you're like, all right, I don't have an alarm. These are obviously cleared because they're just communication, but you don't see anything here. You have to go to the actual A50 and then those would show those units on that. But do I have to go super in depth on this? Or you guys sort of familiar with it? I mean, I could talk about it for 10 hours.
Is there a password and a username on this?
There's nothing.
Okay.
So there's the only password and user stuff is for the super high level stuff,
Yep.
which you don't really have to mess with on a daily basis. That would be like if you wanted to change, if you wanted to reprogram a floor, if you added 10 units of stuff. But all the VC boxes are maxed out, so you really can't do that anyway. But as far as everything you need to get to, as far as logs and everything, there's no passwords. You can see what the units are doing. Good example, so like this unit's running right now. When they're lit up, that means that they're operating. But that's being commanded through the Pelican system. So there's a thermostat interface in each one of the wall units. It's a regular, 8-wire thermostat. W, Y, common, R, all that stuff. So when it sees a 24 volts on the right terminal, it'll go into that interface and then tell the Mitsubishi system to run in that mode. So as far as like troubleshooting on that end, just think of it like a regular 8-wire thermostat. And then when it comes to this end, this will tell you, like, say there's a bad thermistor or something in the unit, or I don't know, a pelican, like or a pigeon made a nest or something and blew a fan up. That alarm would go to this and you guys' front end, not the Pelican system front end, the front end that we were providing for you guys, which is almost done. We had a couple tweaks to the commissioning agent, but we have to fix that and then give you guys the address for that. But this is only for alarms, and if you want to, like, say you're down here and you're like, oh, I want to turn this unit on. Can you guys do the Pelican system through your phone? Or,
No,
yeah, do the Pelican first always for the Mitsubishi system. Always, all the time, because it overrides this. Can't stress that enough, because you'll go insane. And if you ever have a power failure, and you see like half of these will be it says like a trouble icon on them, but it won't be an alarm. Just give it a second. Like sometimes, because there's so many units on this, we had power failures all the time when people turning stuff on, turning stuff off. It would take almost like 2 hours for this thing to reboot. But if the worst case, like we had a couple that would get stuck, all we did was we just turned everything off. We go up on the roof, which I'll show you guys later, turn all the condensers off, and then turn all the condensers on, and then it does kind of like restarting a laptop. That really only happens when you dump the entire building or dump half the building. It does like weird stuff like that. But everything's been pretty, so far really good. It's been running for probably 6 months now, 7 months. We haven't really had any alarms or anything. Obviously it's gonna be different with complaints when tenants move in and all, it's a whole different ball game, but so far it's been pretty good. There's different ways that you can look at the stuff. There's so many units that most of the ways of looking get kind of confusing, so I like the floor plan better. So it's lower level, basement, first floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor is how it's derived. And then these are your commands. Again, you can't really do much with them, but if you want to do a batch command, so like shut everything off. So say you had like a weird power failure problem and you wanted to temporarily shut everything off. We had somebody up on the roof on the disconnects to shut them off. If you operate all these through here and then do off and then okay, they'll shut off. But if but if you give them another command from the Pelican, it'll turn back on. But if you need to do it quick, you can do it from here. So, but you know, you just can't rely on that because as soon as the Pelican gives it something, it's going to go off. So any questions on this in particular? We'll go through a unit and what's actually in the units when we get up there.
So these are doing heat and AC, right?
So these have the capability to do heat and AC.
Yep.
Again, that's being commanded through the Pelican system. Each unit has baseboard as well as 2 or 3 VRF units. So the most effective, efficient way of design is to have the baseboard really do almost all of the heating, and these would be just like an emergency backup. The easiest way to break the 2 is through the Pelican system. So we could have right now as they're wired, stage 1 of the Pelican goes to the baseboard of the living rooms. Stage 2, this is for heat. Stage 2 goes to the VRF unit for that. And then on the bedrooms, there's only 1 stage of heat and that goes right to the VRF. But I have a feeling that if we break that on the Pelican system, so we have like the bedroom be a cooling only thermostat, and then we temporarily disable the 2nd stage of heating for the main room thermostat, the baseboard runs through the entire apartment. So I think they run a little bit better, but these do have the capability of doing that. But the easiest way to break that apart is through the Pelican. I wouldn't try to do it with this. So, but yes, in a pinch, like say the boiler's totally, I don't know, a bus comes through and destroys everything. This will heat the building 100%, but you have to reprogram it on the Pelican front end to just accept that stage. But I wouldn't suggest running them, like, it's better to have the gas first. It's much more cost effective, it's much easier on the equipment. A lot less noise too, but some of the spots in the basement, they only have VRF for heating. A good example is this hallway. There's only like 1 VRF unit there. So like that has to run heat to the VRF system all the time. There just wasn't in the spec to put any heat anywhere else. But that's really only happens in the basement, like 4 different spots. Any other questions?
Is there a way to disable the heat?
Yes, the easiest way to do it would be on the Pelican system though. So the best way would be to go on the Pelican system and you go to like say, so they do it by serial number, but the serial numbers have been converted to the actual rooms already. So say we go to like room 1 and it would say like room 1 living room. That is enabled for having 2 stages of heat and 2 stages of cooling. Stage 1 is baseboard, stage 2 is for the VRF. I think the best thing is to, on the Pelican, take stage 2 and don't think and tell the Pelican system stage 2 doesn't exist, or disable stage 2 through the Pelican so it doesn't try to turn this on. Just because if we disable it here, if the Pelican gives it the command, it'll still try to run. I mean, the building runs pretty good anyway once it gets up to temp. There's a 2-degree difference between stage 1 and stage 2 on the Pelican system, but the best way to interlock it would be on the Pelican system. Wouldn't rely on this for much besides looking at alarms. Is really what I'm trying to get at.
When does the cooling shut down in this building? Do they have it programmed to shut down for a temperature drop or a certain time of year? Or
We really just have it based on whatever the thermostats are giving you.
okay, so they can run AC.
Yeah, so this is a simultaneous heating and cooling system. So if you have an enormous amount of heat in the bedroom, they just have to not be on the same port. But I can get to that later. But it's a simultaneous system, so you can run heating in some parts of the building and cooling in some parts of the building. There's a huge delay for it to get into that mode from a straight heating and cooling. For obvious reasons, there's a lot of logic going on there. But it does do that. It's not a heat pump system, it's a simultaneous system. So, but really just use this for alarms. That's really the best thing to do. A Pelican, and then this would be for alarms. Very similar to St. Paul's building. The St. Paul's building. St. Paul's building has the same setup as this. This is a little bit bigger, but same idea. So, that's it for the Mitsubishi system in this room. I'd like to start focusing on